Dream Report is a reporting tool that allows you to visualize data from multiple sources. These videos are designed to help you get up and running with Dream Report in no time. So let's jump right in. So today we're going to configure Dream Report to actually log values from our Rockwell controller. One thing I will say about Dream Report being a data logger, a couple things you need to watch out for. One is I would suggest that if you're going to do this, you have it log values to a SQL server, a full-blown SQL server, licensed SQL server, so you don't run into limitations of storage. The other thing you must remember is Dream Report is not an historian. For a small project, I think you would be fine, but if you're storing a lot of data, or if this is going to be more of a enterprise site-wide reporting tool, I wouldn't try to use it also as a site-wide enterprise historian. Dream Report is not really built for that, in my opinion, so it'd be better to use a real historian. But again, if it's a small project or just a few data points that you're going to want to log, I think it would be fine to use it in that situation, which is why we're going to show how to configure that here today. So the first thing we've already set up in a previous video, if you haven't seen that or would like to know more about that, of how to configure a driver to a Rockwell controller, we've already done that. We're going to jump right into setting up the logger configuration. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to Logger Studio, and once here, you're going to right click and add an item group. Now, a lot of these things I'll say right click and do this, but you can also do a good bit of this from the top, such as add a item group. I'm just so used to right clicking and doing things. This is the way I typically do it. So add item group. You're going to want to give it a group name. So I'm going to call it Echo Data Log. And my data source, again, where am I going to be getting my information from and what am I going to be logging? I'm going to be pulling it in from the Echo data source, which is what I named my driver for the Rockwell controller. And again, if you're not familiar with how to do that, just watch the other video on configuring a Rockwell driver in Dream Report. I'm going to go to Add Items, and at this point I'll be able to select the items I want to log. I'm going to click amps and temp. I'm going to add them both, and I'm going to say OK. Now at this point we can go into more in-depth configuration, which we're going to do, such as the record rate and record conditions. So click on record rate. So at this point I want to do two things. One, I'm just going to go in and do a quick configuration to get it logging data, and then we'll come back and do a deeper dive into each one of these things. So on the record rate, I'm just going to go in here and tell it I want to log it every 5 seconds. Okay, so that's set up log every 5 seconds, and you don't have anything set as far as record conditions. I kept the defaults there, and I kept the defaults everywhere else. And I'm just going to apply. Okay, and now I've defined that logging, and we are actually logging data at this point. So it's real easy to just do that quick, down and dirty, getting it logging data. So again, the way we normally do things in these videos is we actually prove it out by showing you a report. So I'm going to go in and create a new report. Again, we got other videos on how to do report configuration and how this is all set up. So just look for those, or stay tuned for those. Those will be coming. And then I'm just going to go here to settings. And, you know, I'm not going to do this auto update rate on this. I'm just going to create a web page, and I'm also going to create a PDF, and I'm going to do apply and OK. And I'm just going to drop in a item table, which is going to allow me to bring these data values in. So the thing you're going to want to select is a Dream Report historian. As you remember, we're using Dream Report as the historian and not an external historian server. We do got another video to where we go through that process, and just look for that, or be on the lookout for that to be releasing soon. So Dream Report, and then I'm going to edit the list. And at this point I got to choose my data source. And if you remember, click the echo, and then I'm going to say I want both of these. So, okay. And at this point, the only other thing I'm going to change is down here is how far back do I want to go, and I'm just going to tell it I want to go back 5 minutes and change this to 0 days. So I want to go back 5 minutes into the past and see all the data. Click OK, and I'm going to click, at this point we're done with the configuration. I'm going to do run. Do I want to save it? Yes. And again, it's uploading it to the runtime engine, the Dreamport runtime engine. And then as soon as that finishes, it'll open up the runtime console, and then we can go in and manually generate some reports and verify that we're actually logging data. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do a generate report, and I'm going to open the PDF. Now, one thing about Dream Report is it doesn't, every time it captures a value, it doesn't log it. There's a 60-second period in which it pulls data in before it logs it, so it's not constantly hammering the data store. So we may have to wait a few minutes before, or up to a minute before we see data coming in. So I'm just going to generate a report again, being impatient as I am. There we go. So we're starting to see data values flow in, and let me close this. And again, like always, we'll just look at it through the web page too. So open up the web portal, go to the report, and we're seeing the same values come in. If you remember, I didn't set the auto refresh on this. So again, we got a few more values in. So the quick down and dirty, just getting it to display some data, that's how you do it. But let's go back in now and talk about some of these settings and exactly what all they mean in the report, or in the Logger Studio. Go to modify group and go to record rate, and let's talk about some of these. So when we did our quick down and dirty setup, we told it to log every 5 seconds. But I'm going to go back to the way it defaults whenever you first load it up and talk through this. So record mode, you've got several record modes. You've got on change, on update, every so many seconds or whatever, on an item value change, or on absolute time. Let's talk about on change. So on change, you've got a tolerance option. So how much does it have to deviate for it to be logged, or what's the tolerance for it to actually be logged? Now you can do the tolerance in an absolute value, or you can do the tolerance in a percentage. So that's up to you on how you want to handle that when we talk about on change. The next choice you have is on update. And what on update is, it is an option that enables logging when any value update is received from the data source. So rather that value, the new value is different from the previous one or not, it doesn't matter. It will be logged on an update. So whenever Dream Report, the driver receives an update from that source, it will end up getting logged. When we set this up, we can also, like we had earlier, we had it every 5 seconds, right? So, but if I change it to where it's every 10 seconds, and it's also going to log it every 10 seconds, but the way it logs those records will depend on whether it's normalized time stamping. In other words, when we do normalized time sampling, it makes it log the values, in this case, at the top of the minute, and then minute 10, minute 20, minute 30, and so forth and so on. So it does it literally every 10 seconds from the top of the minute. Now, without normalization on, it does not do that. It's just every 10 seconds, wherever it logs the first one. If it logs it at 1 minute 3 seconds, then the next one's going to be logged at 1 minute 13 seconds. So that's what normalizing does. Now, the thing is, normalizing does not work if you choose a sampling time in here of a value that is not evenly divided into 3600 seconds. If you do that, let's say like 7 seconds, then it's not going to normalize that value. So that's what normalizing time sampling does.
So let me show you an example of that. I've got it logging every 10 seconds. I'm going to tell it to normalize to time sample. I'm going to do apply, okay, and then I'm going to tell it to, again, upload it into their runtime engine, and then we're going to go look at these values. So as you can see here, when we having normalizing on, I'm logging at 20, 40, 50, and then 0. We've actually skipped one because I just updated here recently. So let me do a refresh, and you're seeing 40, 50, top of the minute. Now you're seeing 40, 50, top of the minute, 10, 20, 30. So that's what normalizing does. So let's turn normalizing off now. So if we go to this report, we'll see that it's every 10 seconds, 25, 35, 45, 55, 05, 15, 25. So it's still logging every 10 seconds, but it's not doing it at an interval in relation to the top of the minute. In other words, it's not hitting 0, 0, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. So that's what normalization does for us. So let's go and look at the next one, which is we did on update, we did every on item change. So on item change is basically you will record it, but you will record it based off of the change of another data item. And even within that, you've got, again, you can set the tolerance to either be an absolute or percentage of the item that's changing that would trigger the logging of your data value. And then finally, we got on absolute time. With this, it will record exactly on the time limits or the time points that we add within this list. So if I add that one, and then I could add another one, it's going to record on those time periods. Record periods. So these are the periods in which you're actually going to record values. The day settings, if it's checked, then those are the days in which value is going to be logged. And then you could actually, you cut off Saturday and Sunday, but then you could define the actual periods within the 5 days that we still have enabled. When is it going to log data then? For right now, we've got it set up for a 24-hour period, but you could set it up to where it only logs data for a first shift, right? Because you only run one shift Monday through Friday. You could go through and set that data logging up to where it only logs Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, for example. So enable or record conditioning. So basically what this does is it allows you to either enable the actual logging of the group based off of a condition of another value that Dream Report is either getting from a controller or another device. So you click on enable conditioning, you define your data source, you define the conditions for that data source, and then if those conditions are met, then the records will be logged. If they're not met, then it would not be logging for the entire log group. So that's what the enable record on condition does. Okay, the log values in range. So you define a range for the values that are coming in to Dream Report, and it determines how they will be treated. So if the values are out of range coming into Dream Report, then and you do not have this checked where it says log out of range, then those values will not be put in the database. If you have this box checked and a value comes in that is out of this range, then the value that comes in will be rounded to the closest range limit and then logged to the database. The engineer unit conversion is a way of this doing a very simple conversion on the raw data. You can do a simple conversion or you can do a linear calculation to do that conversion. And then finally, there's the inhibit group logging. In other words, you can just stop the entire group from logging for some reason if you decide to do so. So that's all the ways you configure the Logger Studio for a group. The thing to bear in mind is that, again, the Logger Dream Report is not an historian. So be careful about how many data points you are asking Dream Report to record and log. If it's a lot, then you really need to look at using a true historian for doing this type of data logging.
Let us know if this video was helpful by clicking the like button below. If you want to learn more about Dream Report, contact your local ES&E representative.